So, if you get the email I send out once a week, you read you get the title of the talk, and sometimes I like my title more than others. And this title I really like. It was Finding the Fun in Not Giving a Fig, or How to Let Spirit Drive the Bus. And there was a really great picture of Ms. Frizzle in her bus on the email. So you see why you want to be on our email list, stuff like that. And it's funny, but I'm just smacked all the time by how often something is fun or not fun, and it has nothing to do with the thing. It has to do with my attitude, right? Now, I want to talk about trials. Don't worry, it's going to turn around to fun, but I want to start with the thought of trials, tests, tryouts, ordeals. Anybody who's alive, and you all look alive to me, you know that you've had a trial. Trials come to everyone. And how about this? This was something I read in a spiritual book just yesterday. Sometimes people on the spiritual path, it seems like you get more trials. Just as soon as you decide, I am going to be on the spiritual path. Has anybody had that experience where you said, I am standing up to get, to be at one with spirit, and then more trials come? Yeah. Well, here's the good news. You can always bring your teachings to yourself in other ways. It doesn't have to be a trial. It could be fun. And somehow I still bring trials to myself because it's the fastest way for me sometimes to recognize that I need to change. So whatever. Trials, not trials, it's all good. What a trial really is a set of circumstances that have been designed to light you up in order for you to dismantle the behaviors that created it to begin with, okay? Light you up, meaning light you up with wisdom, light you up with awareness, light you up with spirit, so that you can deal with what you've brought into your life. Right? And I was thinking, is it a trial or could it be an adventure? Is it an ordeal or could it be an escapade, a quest? Is it a suffering or could it be an exploration? In any case, whatever you want to call it, it's an opportunity for growth. Now, I went to a little bit from the Old Testament. Sometimes I find stuff in the Old Testament. This is from Ecclesiastes. My child, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for testing. Okay, I want to read I'm going to read a little bit more of that. My child, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for testing. Set your heart right and be steadfast, and do not be impetuous in time of calamity. Cling to him and do not depart, so that your last days may be prosperous. Accept whatever befalls you, and in times of humiliation be patient. For gold is tested in the fire, and those found acceptable in the furnace of humiliation. Trust in him, and he will help you. Make your ways straight and hope. And all noises are good, and baby noises are the best. And especially when they're expressing what, all of us really want to do. Like, oh, is she quoting the Old Testament again? Ah! Whatever. So, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, except there's some things that are pretty good. It's some good advice. And of course, in Unity, remember, we interpret Scripture metaphysically, which means we apply it to ourselves, right? We apply it to ourselves. So I can apply it to me. I want you to apply it to you. My child, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for testing. So for me, I would say, my child, that's how I would like to speak to myself. You know, my dear, sweet little inner Cindy. You know, you can talk to yourself. When you come to serve the Lord, so Lord does not just mean God outside. Lord is the spirit within. We say the Christ within a lot. We say the Buddha within, but it is, or our higher power. It is the spirit of us, you know. It is the spark of divinity within. Okay. And, okay, I'm getting some weird feedback. You can only laugh, right? When your microphone starts, you know. Prepare yourself for testing. Prepare yourself for a trial. Maybe your microphone is going to make bad noises at you. But instead of testing, let's go with adventure or quest, okay? So whenever you ask, and this is true, when you add love, when you ask spirit, you say, I want to get closer. Sometimes people say, I want to get closer to God. Or sometimes people want to say, I want to really know myself. Well, that's an invitation to the universe. Let's just see how I should say this. To mess with you, to throw you some figs. And how we deal with it is up to us. You know, it's funny when Julie was talking about the first time, you know, there was a hill, and then, you know, you ride your bike a lot, and then you don't notice a hill. I still notice the hills, but that's why, you know, I like the flatness. But it's so much in our the way we're looking at it. So here's just a little bit from the New Testament, from the Epistle of James. My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it nothing but joy. Yeah, that's some interesting advice too. Now, I'm going to tell you some more about my trials and how you can maybe turn a trial into an adventure. But I wanted to look at one more, just a little bit more of spiritual inspiration. And so I turned to Buddhism. I am not an expert on Buddhism at all, but I can look stuff up on the internet with the best of them. And Buddhism has some really cool things that have helped me a lot, and some really awesome teachers in America. Emmett Chodron, Jack Kornfield. I love them all. But you can also look up their traditional things. Like, they don't have the 10 Commandments. They have things like something about 4, and then they have the Eightfold Path. So I want to look at one precept of the Eightfold Path, which is called right understanding. So right understanding would be seeing the world and everything in it as it really is, not as we believe it to be or want it to be. So that is a very powerful tool to help us with turning a trial into an adventure. It says here, just as you may read the directions on a map, then make the journey, studying, reading, and looking at the information is important, but it's only preparing. At a deeper level, personal experience will lead us to right understanding. So it's all about us in the moment being there. Now, one of my learning edges, or my things that have been popping up for me, is that I have been taking things personally. You know, like, it's raining, I can't go on the bike path. Like somebody did it to me. Have you ever done that? Not to mention, you know, the people you may live with or hang out with, like the things they do, like, your shoes are on the floor. Yeah, but I was going to walk there. You can move them. And then that's the jokey part of it. But the other part is I notice that I start taking things personally. I take them so personally, I don't even notice it. Like, and I've noticed lately that when I'm in a meeting or a room, and I have a lot of meetings, I have board meetings and class meetings, and I belong to a lot of groups, I notice that I want everyone in the room to be happy and peaceful. And that's just ridiculous. Like, if I want all you to be happy right now, that's just ridiculous. Or even if I want you all to be at peace or have a good time, that's ridiculous too, because that is not anywhere near right understanding. And why do I care? I don't give a fig. That's actually a spiritual practice. Not caring what other people think. Not caring what other people think about me, not even caring what they think about the chairs, the church, anything, anytime, and not caring that everybody's getting along in the room. There's a reason that's one of my issues, because I was one of 8 kids. I was the oldest, and let me just tell you, it was really hard to boss them around. They rarely were bossable, because I was just one of them, right? And well, let's just say it's been a long time since I've lived in Seattle with my 7 brothers and sisters. And yet I notice that I can still act it out a little bit, right? So here's what I want to ask you. I want to ask you some questions. What is your learning edge when you think about is your life full of trials or adventures right now? And like when things happen, when the toast burns, is that an adventure to see what burnt toast tastes like? Or is it the universe thwarting you? Oh, stupid toaster burnt my toast again. What is your learning edge? What do you find yourself, what's the story you tell yourself about things, ask yourself, like, the last thing that irritated you, what was the story you told yourself about it? Was it something that was easy to get through? Did you want to blame somebody? Blaming is, very helpful, right? What is it that you think is not the way it should be? Like, what? Like, I don't know. What is not the way it should be? Like, and how wonderful if that is, instead of a trial, it's an adventure. I am not going to tell anybody that the really horrible, be happy for the terrible, horrible things that happen when you lose people you love, when your house is flooded. My house wasn't flooded. When your house is swept by what? Any of those things, when tornadoes, whatever. I'm not going to say, look at that as an adventure, but it might make it a little bit better. One of the things I noticed in Florida, we moved to Florida, I think it was 2004. I moved from Colorado, and I moved for the job of going to the beach every day. Roland moved for a different job, but my job was going to the beach every day. And we had a hurricane, and he said, oh, we haven't had a hurricane in 30 years, but one came. But the interesting thing was, the hurricane didn't hurt me. We lost power. We were a little bit hot for a week, but we had food. Nobody died in that hurricane. The neighbors came out and talked to each other. I met everybody on my street, so it actually did become fun, because after the hurricane, everybody was out talking. And as a matter of fact, we lived in a little house, and we started talking to the neighbor across the street, and he ended up renting us the house. It was a better house. I mean, it was interesting. So you never know what things can work, how they work. Now, what I want to say is, I'm not just telling you to just turn things into an adventure without a few steps. I'm a processy kind of person. But what I noticed is there's two ways you could approach this. If you're interested in turning things into an adventure, there's the surrender way, and then there's the process way. And there's a combination of both. So the surrender way is probably the way of communion with your higher power inside. And it can be a really beautiful and wonderful way to face something. So let's say your next trial is appearing before you. Your next trial. And you know what it is, or your last trial. So you can just surrender to it. You can have right understanding and notice it is what it is and not something that you want it to be, or not not better, not worse, but it is what it is. And you can surrender. And the beautiful thing about surrender when you're on the spiritual path is you have spiritual help. So you're surrendering and you're saying, this happened, and I'm going to let Spirit drive my bus. Okay, Spirit? I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to start the engine till you drive the bus, and then Spirit comes in with an idea, or somebody drops by. I cannot tell you how many times Spirit shows up as an angel in human form, or something happens if you stop and say, I'm going to surrender. Well, I can surrender sometimes, but I also like to process. And the process is, the processes usually involve self-observation, reflection, and perspective, or the ability to not take it personally. And I have tools that I use that I've talked about before, and I'll tell you again that the processing tools that work the best for me are the forgiveness tools. It's the Colin Tipping has a beautiful worksheet if you like to write. And the Byron Katie has something called The Work. Byron Katie, The Work. And see me if you want to know about them. Sometimes I spend a whole talk talking about them. But it's a way of taking you from where you are. It's like the process way to surrender. It takes you from where you are to, let's just say, I'm mad because Gray's Lake is still muddy. So I get to start on my journey. If I process, I get to start by writing down, I am mad that it's muddy. It's messing me up because I'm tired of going to the gym and I want to run around the lake, and that's why I want to run, because it's flat and it's pretty and it's making me gain weight, whatever, all the goofy stuff you want to say about how your life is inconvenienced because Gray's Lake has mud on it, okay, whatever. But then you write it out, and you follow the process, and you look at, so the worksheet takes you from looking at how you see it to, oh, is this familiar to you, and so on and so on. So you turn it around and you recognize why it might have been in your life this way and what the reality is. So that is always an awesome process for me. Now, every time I do a forgiveness worksheet, because I have people to forgive, and not just the lake. Every time I have someone to forgive, I do a forgiveness worksheet, and I'm doing the worksheet, and I won't say that at the end of the worksheet I feel all happy and at peace. Like, I've done the worksheet, I've said all the stuff I needed to say about how wrong they are, I've looked at myself and I've realized, well, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that, blah, 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 whatever the worksheet is. Every single time I have taken the time to do a worksheet, forgiveness has happened. Sometimes it's a day later, sometimes it's a month later. But every single time, and any time when I'm actually having some kind of non-peaceful relationship with someone, like they call me up, it's healed, something shifts. I mean, there's people that occasionally people like don't want to talk to you, then they call you up. Every single time I've done a workshop, the shift happens. every single time. And that is what I call the, I guess that's the bonus of being on the spiritual path. It's like surrendering without, just getting yourself to surrender. And it always, always happens. So peace always ends up there. Now, those are my best tools. You may have other tools. Those are the ones that I'm willing to help anybody with anytime. Part of my job is I'm a spiritual counselor. You can call me up and make an appointment, and we'll do a worksheet together for anybody you need to forgive, or any lakes you're mad at, or anything. And it really works. Now, I just want to talk one more time about turning it over to spirit and thinking about driving the bus and when something can go from feeling horrible to feeling fun. When something seems as if it's thwarting you, or it seems, when I think the universe is thwarting me, to the difference between having fun. And it's funny, there's so many times that there's such silly things that annoy me, like the silliest things that annoy me. And if I lessen my grip of annoyance, then it can turn into fun, and it can turn into an adventure. Have you ever been had something taken away from you, like a job or something you really liked, and then it was okay? Like, in fact, that was the best thing that ever happened to you, because then maybe that guy or hurt girl or whatever, wombat you really loved dumped you, and you were miserable for a long time, and then, wow, if that person had not dumped you, that next person that came along, you would not have been available to that. So I know everybody has had that experience, right? Every single person in here has had that experience of turning a trial into an adventure, or eventually the trial makes room for the adventure. Now, here we go. This works every time. Surrendering works every time. Processing works every time. And I will be your advocate. If you have something that is not budging in your life, I will guarantee you come see me, we'll work on something together, and it will shift. It's part of what I get to do as a minister. Now, next month, which is April, this is the last, oh, by the way, tomorrow's April Fool's Day, so plan your jokes now. Okay? There's somebody who needs to be squirted with a flower, right? Somebody? Plan your jokes now for April 1st, which is tomorrow. But our learning theme for April is growth and renewal. And as I said last week, this is what the first thing I want y'all to think about for next week. Real wealth is allowing ourselves to accept the things that come into our life for growth, okay? So in Unity, people study prosperity and abundance, and they think about getting things or money or work or sustenance, and they think about that. And I'm here to say, for this month, for the month of April, real wealth abundance is about noticing and allowing all the opportunities for growth, letting them happen so that our soul, just like the beautiful flowers, can grow and blossom. Let's take an offering for unity. I invite you to take your offering, your support, and or if you're like me and you'll